So we just gonna let this flow. I am Jaja or Deja, whatever you want to call me. I've been on this journey, intentional healing journey, since for about a year now. And I decided that I was going to let go of my last relationship and hold on to God. And since then, I found that love is the only solution for healing. Love is the only cure for a broken heart. Of course, you have a team. Of course, you have other resources, but love is what's missing, and it's always going to be what you need if you're brokenhearted. So, in the beginning of June 2022, last year, I began documenting my journey, and of course, I'll insert some clips so y'all see what kind of pain I was in, what kind of frustrations I had. But I'm also going to share some tips about how I overcame most of the bigger issues that I was dealing with during that time. Um, just a little background: I am a single mother. I was in a relationship for about 5 years before we ended it off while I was pregnant. Um, he claimed I trapped him, but if y'all watching this and y'all know me, I don't got time to be trapping nobody, and that's not how I get down. If I want to have a baby, then I'm going to have a baby. But if I don't want to have a baby, I'm not going to have a baby. That was a conscious decision between both of us, and we were very intentional about having that baby. Just to clear that, because I know my haters is watching. Anyway, so I have 10 lessons from June, and I know this journey is a very long journey. It felt like it for me. But for y'all who are also on this journey after heartbreak, trying to figure out what to do next, and you just need some guidance or some direction about how to connect back with God, then you're in the right place. You're here in the right place, okay? So, I have 10 lessons from June. I was really struggling at the beginning of the healing journey, of course. Like, there was a lot of things I look back and I'm like, oh, Lord. Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord. But now I'm like, okay, let's try to digest and see what I did to kind of overcome those things so I can help other people while they, going through that initial breakup. So let's talk about that initial breakup. The initial breakup could be betrayal, lying, just not getting along. Spirits don't agree with each other anymore, or you just really seeing the person now, how they really are, and you just not being fulfilled or in that. So wherever you are in your breakup, you have separated and you're alone. And you have to deal with this unmeshing of you and that person. It feels like almost like a death. You lost somebody that you truly loved. And it just does not feel good. I'll just say this part. At the beginning of my relationship, at the beginning of my at the end of my relationship, I realized that I did not love my ex as much as I thought I did. I was like, how could he? And I loved him so much. And as I began to take responsibility and look within and know everything that I came with in the relationship that may have added to the trash and the toxicity of the relationship, and it just didn't add up. You can see how somebody don't love you, but you can't. Sometimes you have to really think about how you're making everybody else feel as well, and how your undealt with issues rub off on people as well, and that hurts and that stings for them as well. That was something that I had to realize, like, maybe I didn't love him this pure way that I thought I did. Like, I loved him how I wanted to be loved, but it wasn't how he needed to be loved. But another thing about breakup is, first taking responsibility, and then two, of course, this is not one of my top 10 lessons from June, but really separating, coming out of it and not dabbling. That was a major thing that, got me, past the hurt, past the pain. You slip up a couple times, but like, your goal should be sexual purity. Your goal should be, during this time at least, until you get married. That was my goal. Until I got married, I didn't want to do nothing, because I didn't want nobody taking advantage of my body no more. I didn't want, to be used up, and, like, you using me, and then, like, I'm asking for stuff, and you feel like you ain't gotta do it because you already got what you want. And that's not how my relationship dynamic is gonna be. So even though, it's, every relationship has its, things, but we're gonna talk about finding that space to grow. And even if you feel like, you don't know how to leave yet, work on it. Figure out the first step. Figure out the first step of leaving, because if you feel like you're in a toxic or abusive relationship, you're not, you know, there is always a way to find peace. And my solution will always be prayer. Prayer. But once you find that first step and start creating a space for you, just you and God, that's now we talking. Lessons for June. Big tipper. So my first video about June, I'll include the clip, but I was talking about your house. I was talking about the house and how you invite people in the house and they start to treat your house how you treat your house. And that's a big lesson. That's an overview, okay? So if you treat in your house any type of way, if you single or on your own, you're not really loving yourself, you're not really caring for, you're not really maintaining, you got things you got to deal with from your childhood, and you're not really taking care of your heart and your mind, you haven't even sat down with yourself to really get real, then stuff is gonna keep adding on to it. So we're gonna talk about that later, but the first, I'll do 3. I have 10, but we're gonna do the first top 3. Let's do the top 3 of my lessons that I feel like people can learn from. I'll just do the first 3. Okay. My first lesson was, excuse me, let me wipe my nose. I learned that at the end of every relationship for me and every breakup, I found myself realizing the first initial problem was me ignoring God, me ignoring my intuition, me ignoring my own heart. Like, that's always where it started. I would hear a word, don't talk to him, and I'm like, why? And get curious for what? And end up on the floor crying 2, 3, 5 years later, like, don't talk to him. You know what I'm saying? But that's lesson number 1. So my 3 top solutions on how to be obedient to God when you hear his voice is spend time with him. Spend time with God's word so that you can get familiar with how he speaks and familiar with his voice. The more you can spend time with his word, you kind of get familiar with how he speaks to you, and that's very important. And then as you dive into his word, you'll build a reverence and a fear for him. And I feel like that was a big thing for me, is I didn't fear God. Like, I would hear him and I'm like, okay, and then still go about my business. Like, my ears heard, but like, did I heed? Did I hearken to his voice? And that was always a no. So that's why I'm making this video, because years later, heartbreak after heartbreak after heartbreak. Like, learn your lesson. And then my second is cry out and be real in prayer. So a lot of us started out coming back to God, or being reintroduced to God, or going through this heartbreak season. We we don't always know how to formally pray, but just think of God as a best friend or somebody you trust, or a father, and really just be real with him. Like it don't have to be no long extensive prayer. You can even say it in your head, you can say it out loud, you can be alone, or you can find somewhere you can just kind of get away from everybody and pray. But like, just simply being real with God. He understands where you are, and he understands your pain, and he would rather you come to him than run back to your ex. But the third thing is for to not be a disobedient and to begin trusting God is just standing on God's faithfulness and patience. So as you begin to eat God's word and spend time with him alone, and as you begin to be real with him in prayer, just standing on his love. Love is patient, love is kind, love does not envy, love does not boast. All those good things. Get familiar with that scripture too. What is it? 1 Corinthians 13:4-8. Love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no records of wrong. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, it always trusts, it always hopes, it always perseveres. Love never fails. So love will not dishonor you. Love is patient. Love is not proud, will not boast. It keeps no record of wrong. So when God says, I forgive you, he forgives you. He forgave you a long time ago, even before you did it. He knew you was going to do it. That's why he came down to wash it, so you could come to him and be like, God, I did this, I did that. Just be real, but standing on his love. God don't hate me. I feel like that's important, because we feel like God hates you, then it's not really, you can't heal. You can't heal like that. When you feel like the one who made you hates you, how could he hate something that he made? It's like having a baby. That's not a good example. That's like taking your time on a project that you really are interested in and then throwing it. Because, no, you won't throw it. You're not going to throw it away. You're not going to ever let it out your sight. You can do everything for that thing to be protected and guarded. But, okay, so that's number one. Number two is don't be naive. Naive. Let's look up the definition of naive. Let's look up this definition. Because I want to say, I know what it is, but I don't want to, do a black Deja definition. I want to do the real definition. According to Google, naive means showing lack of experience, wisdom, or judgment. So that was me. I dated a lot, but I did not apply my learning experiences to after. I would just hop in and out of relationships. I would not sit down with myself oh, where did I go wrong here? I didn't use discernment, judgment, or I didn't even use my own experience to build a better relationship for the next time. So that's important to do. That's always important to do. First of all, you shouldn't be hopping from relationship to relationship, but if you are, at least take the lessons you learned from that guy and refuse to let it happen again. So to become sophisticated, mature, and wise in your relationships, listen to your mom and your dad. Listen to the people who came before you. Listen to those who have been through some stuff. Sometimes they warning you, and sometimes they have insight, and they see where you're going, and trying to keep you off a road that is gonna make you like take you through unnecessary pain. So I will always say, listen to your mom or your dad or anybody that's, been through some stuff. But that also takes maturity to know that you don't know everything, and that, you know, applying people's other people's lessons can take you ahead. It can bring you ahead of the game. If you want to be ahead of the game, listen to the people that came before you. Um, Ask questions. Ask questions. If you want to learn and not be naive and be sophisticated in this dating arena, um, learn to ask questions and find a mentor throughout this process that you feel like has the knowledge to help you through your low points, but also to prevent other things while dating. Okay, my third one is just being quiet. Being quiet. If you are naive, then be quiet. If you don't have experience, then you need to be silent and you need to be watching. You need to be watching. You need to be watching people, watching your somebody that you're interested in, watching how people interact, watching yourself, picking up on the things that you do, and knowing your strengths and your weaknesses. So that's the third thing. And then my third lesson for June. Let's see. Okay, it's reactivity. I was so reactive to my baby dad. I was reactive. I was so reactive. Anything he did, I was like, or just end of the world depression. Like, where are you going? Like, come on, just reactive and just basically unhealed. When you're just so anxious and so triggered like that, you gotta know that the person, whatever the person does, is not gonna help you. You have to help yourself at this point. So I would study yourself. So one, to become, instead of reactive, being proactive. It's getting ahead of situations, getting ahead of your emotions, getting ahead of things so that you're prepared for things that happen in life. So I would just baseline start off with knowing your wounds, knowing where things hurt, knowing how you feel about yourself, knowing how your childhood affects you today. Like, oh, my dad left me, and as a child I really internalized that as him not loving me or him rejecting me and me not being good enough for my dad to stay. Like, if you have an idea of that and applying that to how you interact with people, you would know that if someone begins to leave you and you start reacting a certain way, you're like, oh, this is me, this is my unhealed stuff, like this is what I need to work on. So you need to study yourself and then study trauma responses, because when we have wounds from our past, we cope with it. We learn how to cope instead of learning how to heal. So how have you been coping with your unhealed heart? How have you been coping with your unhealed heart? So once you begin to study how you've been coping, how to reverse those coping mechanisms and get to the root. We're gonna talk about this in my course, but like for now, this is a lesson. This is a lesson that I wish I would have known. But okay, yeah. The second tip would be to deal with yourself in private. If you're reactive and you're just out of control emotions, like, you need to be spending at least an hour with yourself and like journaling and, you know, being real with yourself about like what your triggers are and who be pushing your triggers and who you can't be around because of this, and you know, about who you really are and where, like, what things you need to like start paying attention to. Like, deal with yourself just like you have that space with God, the time alone with God. You have to sit down with yourself and have meetings with yourself. Like, instead of going out at night to distract yourself from your pain, or going out to the club, or hanging out with friends, or going to eat, or going shopping, sit in your mess. Sit in your mess. Let yourself cry. Let all the stuff that you putting on other people, you sit there and deal with it yourself. Don't put your pain on other people. Deal with yourself in private. And then my third way to be proactive instead of reactive is to move towards people and things that fit your ultimate goal in your life. So say you feel like your purpose is serving the homeless community. That, you know, that's a general thing, but even within our relationships and within our standards, within ourselves and our boundaries, like, we have to learn like our heart. So we have a heart like this. So stay away from people who don't have a heart for God, or don't have a heart for, you know, service. You have to learn how to look at people's fruit and how they're treating themselves and how their life is going, because they're gonna come into your house. They're gonna act the way you tell them to act, and they're gonna act how they're treating themselves. So we gotta be only move towards people who have unnecessary. Anyway, only move towards goals and people with godly fear. That's what I was trying to say. Godly fear. Move towards people who have godly fear. Yeah. But yeah, those are my top three for June, my June healing journey. And yeah, I hope that helps. Anybody that's like going through a heartbreak, like, need some directions, or just trying to, you know, get through the day. You know, these are good journaling prompts, and stuff like that. It's you're gonna get through this. You're gonna get through this, okay? Remember to be light. Keep your eyes forward. Where's your next goal? Where are you moving toward? You're broken up with this guy or whatever, and you need something to look forward to. So just keep your eye on something, like a vision, a goal, so that you can get through this. And that's probably number 4, but